I also, class this week, because I'm not in, I was going to ask you to do a sculpt anyway, because I feel like it's a useful thing for you to start getting used to. There's a ton of like sculpting videos if you literally search like head sculpt, either ZBrush or Mudbox, it doesn't really matter. The tool is just ancillary, it's more about the concept. But I'll just walk you through this real quick and hopefully you should be able to then perform your own. So this is obviously Jinx from Arcane. What I started off with is a bunch of mood boards and got together a bunch of references because the head shape is very different from different angles. So you can kind of see that I'm looking from the front, from the side, and trying to get as many references as possible. I also got like a child reference because I'm trying to do it in between, where it's like just before she's grown up to where we see the movie. In ZBrush, what I can do is top right there's a transparency thing. So I tried using this at the start. I didn't really like it, so I went to an image pane later. But basically, there's a little slider for transparency top right, so you can make the whole of ZBrush transparent. When you hover over a menu item, it'll be opaque, but then when you hover back on the sculpt, it'll be non-opaque. I started with one of the anime heads because I thought it was the closest thing that I had. That was like when you open that version of the project folder, there's like a little anime head. You can just double click on that, it'll open that project. So that's basically what I began with because it's close-ish. Because the shape in Arcane are stylized, they're not realistic, they're not fully like chibi, but they're kind of in between. So I thought it'd be easier to start with a chibi and go back to realistic. The head is massive, so I needed to do a lot of work to see that. So I started off initially really, let me just change the play speed here. Sorry, 2 seconds. Right, I'm on 2 times play speed now. So basically I started off using the move tool and some of the smooth tools. So sometimes when you move you get like little lumps, so I use the smooth, just like hold shift to smoothen them out. And you can see the move tool I have it on a massive side because I'm making really big adjustments. I just squish down the head and then I'm going to start working with ears and the sides and the nose. And I'm doing really big adjustments at the start because I'm trying to get like actual, almost like skull structure, bone structure before I move on. So I'm going to do that for quite a bit and skip ahead. And you can see like now when I go to the nose, I'm making much smaller adjustments. I'm trying to get, again, much larger scale shapes as opposed to smaller shapes. I don't really care at all about detail just yet. So remember I was saying about the shortcuts and like how you forget them, but then as you sculpt you remember them straight away. So I had started remembering them already really quickly. So move was BMV, and standard is BST. This is a clay buildup brush, and I'm using it because I like the kind of like a hard texture. I find it easier to work with texture than smooth it out later. Depends on how you work. So this is BCB. That's B clay buildup. And then the other useful ones are like pinch. So that's when you have like a sharp edge and you want to define it further. That's you use the pinch tool. So that's BPI. Then we have a polish. That's BPO, and that will like do similar stuff. And we have flatten. I use that a lot. So that's BFA. Again, if you just want to search like shortcuts in ZBrush, there'll be a list of them all. But those are the tools that I was using. So polish, flatten, pinch, clay buildup. When I go to hair, I haven't done the hair yet. I'll be doing it later. When I go to hair, I'll probably be using the dam brush. I don't know what it is. It's probably BDS or something. But the dab brush for cutting the wrinkles, if you remember that, it's also good for hair. So you can kind of see I'm trying to get, using the clay sculpt, some really basic shapes. You don't want to build up the lips too much because they'll look like they're pouting out loads. In fact, you want to cut in more than you want to build up. I'm just building up just the really top areas. I'm just smoothing out the sides. Then I'll try and cut them in. But you can see it looks like a really pouty shape. I'll fix that later, but I made a mistake. I pushed them out too far here. Here's me trying to define jaw structure. And then I'm using smooth. And you see, you can go too far. I went too far there. So move it back down, and I'm defining. She's got a pretty angular draw, so I'm going to define that as well using the click brush. So let's skip on. Here I'm defining like almost muscle groups. If you ever see like an anatomy kind of definition of a muscle, you'll see that the eyes, they have these muscles that go around, and it's almost as if like you're defining first the bones, this is the first thing we did, and then we're defining muscle groups now, and then we're going to smooth them down and like put skin over them by sculpting over them almost. But I need to have that definition first. So that's me again tweaking. Every so often I'm tweaking like general head shapes as I see that there's issues here and there. So if I keep going forward, I am trying to. I just did a Z remesh on this just to test because I was losing detail and I wanted to go to higher detail. You can see like I'm starting to get jagged edges. I tried to Z remesh, didn't really work, so I just did a subdivide in the end, which is Control D. So I just got more polygons essentially. And here's me defining a little bit like the eye structure. You can kind of see where that musculature that I had on, because I'm smoothing it out now, it's getting better. So this is an interesting one. This is in the subtool, I can insert a new subtool. So I inserted just like a basic sphere that comes from from ZBrush. So I inserted that in, and that sphere is just going to be the basis for my eye. You can scale and move that like sphere. So I moved that so it looks like there's an eye, so I can make sure that my eyebrows are fitting around it doesn't look too weird, and like the curvature is correct. You can duplicate if you want to. I did. In this case, I'm just using one because I'm symmetrical anyway. Yeah, I just did like a really gentle carving of the nose. I'm trying to build up a little bit more like flesh around the mouth area to smooth that out so it doesn't pull too hard. Keep going. You see that here is where I started smoothing things out quite a lot more. And I'm using like the flatten and the polish brush a lot as well. I think her mouth was too big at this stage. I went back and fixed it later. So again, I don't even care about wrinkles or anything like that just yet. Like I know I have some outlines right here. I'm mostly trying to fix basic shapes. She's still too patty because at the start I built up the lips too much, and like it's giving me problems all the way till now, like hours later. So this is, if you use Control on any brush, you can do something called a mask. So Control add a mask, and Control a mask basically blocks up certain areas so you can't paint on it, and you can invert it. How you can Google like mask and ZBrush. However, what you can also do with the mask is you can do an extract. So that's in the, I believe in subtools as well. So when you create a mask, you can hit extract button, and like there's a thickness. You can control how thick it extracts to. Whenever you move, it will disappear. You need to extract again, and then you need to hit apply if you actually want it. It'll apply as a completely different subtool, so you'll have a brand new subtool there. So you can kind of see me testing that here. Didn't like it, I'm going for it. But then I end up with actual eyebrows that I could then sculpt with. And then I did the same with hair. I sculpted the whole thing, masked the whole thing off, and you can extract, and you get a whole like hair. And those me like sculpting the hair a little bit. I don't like the hair. I'm gonna go back and redo it again. I had a lot of problems with the hair, and that's another thing I'm gonna have to do. And this is me adding. I just added like extra spheres and then just like tweak them out to be like the hair little hair strands. Again, I don't like them. As well, I just did copies of it. So we're soon going to go to sculpting. Texture. So when I'm finished, I'm going to use the Z plugin and Z plugin Fbx Export. I'll export that. I can export all visible, and it'll export as a FBX. So here is, I did not unwrap this. I should, but I didn't. And it's going to cause problems, as you'll see. So I just imported substance and export substance automatically unwrap. which it did. It was pretty okay, but it had problems. Like when I bake the texture maps later, you'll see when I'm trying to use the ambient occlusion, there's like a split on her lip because that's where the seam, right there where the seams are, which is really annoying. So I would have been able to use the ambient occlusion map a lot better if I didn't have that seam, which is really annoying. Very annoyed about that seam, to be honest. Yeah, it would have saved a lot more. I had to paint a lot of stuff instead that I could just use the occlusion for. As we keep going, this is basically just, I was playing with this blur slope filter, which we haven't talked about yet. It didn't really work because it usually gives a painted look. It's just a filter you can apply. But I didn't actually think it would work well for this. And then all the rest of this is literally just hand painting, which is maybe not that useful for you. But I use one of the Kyle's brushes. I think they come in free now. And it's like kind of a hand painted watercolor look. And I started with like a base color that was very light skinned. This is what she is, and it added reds on like a nose. You can see like on the nose and the cheeks, and around the lips areas, around the eyes. Just got really dark eyeshadow. So a lot of this is just me doing that. Go to the next texturing bit. And I use different layers as well. I added highlights on a different layer. The league highlights are very dominant, so they're like this white light and this kind of H shape almost that goes around. So I was trying to emulate all of that, drawing like final details and stuff. Again, this is where I had a hair problem because the shape of the hair didn't really allow me to do a lot with it, so I don't really like it. And it has this like fake, I don't like this, kind of like cap shape. So I'll need to go back and tweak that just a little and re-import that. So then when I exported, I could export into the Sketchfab, straight away. If I logged in, it would just bring the whole model in. But I actually exported as a separate Sketchfab because what I wanted to do is open that DAE file that it exports as. So it exports as like a zip file that has the model in as a DAE. You can directly import that as ZBrush. And basically, I wanted to because I know this is textured, I can now adjust the face shape. So I gave her more of a scowl and kind of brought her eyebrows down, but it's all textured already, so it's fine. So it got like a final shape. And then I'll export this as an FBX. Because the unwrap stays the same, I changed the geometry, so I changed the polygons, but the unwrap is still exactly the same, so it's fine. Let's go to Sketchfab then. So that's imported. Basically, I had to individually go and add in all the textures and stuff, which is really annoying. It's fine. And then here's me messing with the lighting and the post-processing settings and stuff. To import the textures, you just go to the material panel, select one of the materials, and then click import textures. On like the albedo, for example, you try to add a color, add a texture, you can import all the textures and you can assign them to materials. So that's just me adding some of the basic lightings and tweaking the stuff, and then this post-processing stuff here, and then just messing around with post-processing. That's VR stuff for some reason. Messing with that. And you get a finalized one. Again, as I said, I'll redo the hair, but that's pretty good for now. It's okay. So what I wanted you to do on Friday, but you can start anytime after this video, is to try to head sculpt. What I would suggest is not to worry about the eyes for now. Just have like a cavity there. If you want to put in a sphere, that's fine, but don't worry too much because this is actually a very simple eye. What I did is you just paint on top of it. There's also more complex eye structures you can do, which we'll talk about, where you can basically have simulated outer layer of the eye and concavity of the eye. You can simulate all of that. And then here we can do something called hair cards, which are almost transparent, like little PNGs on models that just go on and simulate hair. I didn't do that with this as well. It would take forever. So I'll be doing more hair sculpts later, and I'll be tweaking this hair. I don't like this hair, but for now this is fine. I wouldn't even worry about hair for your models too as well. You can if you want to. If you just don't mind having a blob like this, that's fine. But if you want more complex figure, it takes a lot of time. So I honestly just worry about like face structure and trying to get something that looks similar-ish to something you're trying to get to look like. I would also suggest something stylized or cartoony, or an old character. I would try not to do realistic because that's very hard. So any questions, please put it in the comments.